The Fiendsmith cards are here, and one of the best decks to abuse them is Yubel. Not only are we going to go through the deck list and showcase how the Fiendsmith cards have improved this deck, but make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to go over some of the new combos that this deck can do. What's going on, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be diving into the Fiendsmith Yubel deck. Not only are the Fiendsmith cards extenders for the deck, but they're one-card combos as well. But as always, if you haven't already, go grab yourself a cup of coffee or something. That way you guys can sit down and tune in. Alright, so these Fiendsmith cards are really amazing. Just like Snake Eyes, not only are they extenders and add to your combos, but they act like starters as well. You can use them to bridge into the Yubel engine. Again, make sure you stick around to the end so you can see the power that these cards offer. But for our Fiendsmith engine, we are running 3 copies of Engraver, 1 copy of Tract, and 1 copy of Fable Lowry. I touched on what these cards do in the Snake Eyes deck, and if you haven't seen that already, make sure you guys go check that out after this video. But as a quick rundown, Engraver has 3 effects, 1 on the field, 1 in the grave, and 1 in the hand. Whenever it's in the hand, you can discard it to add one of your Fiendsmith spells or traps. This will add you the Tract. We're not playing a trap, obviously. Then, of course, while it's in the grave, you can shuffle any light fiend from your graveyard back into the deck to special summon it back to the field. And then the last effect it has comes up more when you're playing into a board, but while it's on the field, if you have a Fiendsmith equip card, you can send it and an opponent's monster from the field to the graveyard, acting like removal for the deck. We'll talk about it more when we get to the extra deck, but just know that the Link monsters can equip themselves to a non-Link Fiendsmith monster. While they're equipped, they give off some bonus effects as well, but just know you can use each of Engraver's effect once per turn. It's so crazy how custom this card is. Fiendsmith Track will add a light fiend from your deck to your hand when you activate it, and then after you have to discard a card. Most of the time you're gonna add Fable Lowry because when it's discarded, it'll special summon itself back from the grave. This just gives you free Link fodder to start Link climbing with, and you definitely could run multiple copies of Tract if you wanted to, but again, it's up to you. I just personally value the non-engine space in this deck. But then for the namesake of the deck, the Yubel engine we're playing is 2 copies of Spirit, 1 copy of the original Yubel, and 1 Terror Incarnate. Now that we have the Fiendsmiths, this deck is even more consistent, and just getting 2 bodies on the field can let you extend even further. As you can see, we've cut down on the Spirit of Yubel, because even though drawing these cards isn't bad, because you could potentially contact views into your Phantom of Yubel early, by themselves they don't really contribute to any extending. So for me, I just play the bare minimum I think this deck needs, because this deck reminds me so much of Dragon Link. You have so much good stuff, Fiend cards, it's so easy to combo no matter what combo pieces you open. Of course, alongside it, we are playing 3 copies of Delotus. I'm only on 2 copies of Grave Squirmer and 1 copy of Nightmare Pain. Again, this engine is really trimmed down. In the past, I had played 3 copies of Squirmer, and then of course, we're playing 1 copy of Terraforming to go alongside our 3 Nightmare Throne. Not much to explain with this package. Again, it is a little trimmed down, but now that we have the Fiendsmith cards, not only do they help us get access to this engine, but when we already have these cards going for us, we can use them to extend our combos now even further. As I mentioned, this really does feel like a Fiend Link deck. So some of the additional Fiend support cards we're playing is 3 copies of the Opening of the Spirit Gates, and I'm only opting to run 1 copy of Dark Beckoning Beast alongside 1 copy of Chaos Summoning Beast. This might look a little weird because it's different from what we've done in the past. Reason being is at the end of the day, the one you want to see the most is the Opening of the Spirit Gates. By itself, this card is essentially 3 bodies that let you Link summon and bridge into any combo in any part of your deck. You could play more copies of Dark Beckoning Beast to add more consistency to your deck if you wanted to, but for me, the one downside with this deck is sometimes your hand can clog with monsters. Now you might be asking, why the heck are we playing the Chaos Summoning Beast? It's another fiend with 0 attack and 0 defense, so it does contribute to making Phantom of Yubel, but essentially this is another target that we can search with our Dark Beckoning Beast, because if you use gates to search our Beckoning Beast, when you normal summon it, if you're not playing Chaos Summoning Beast, then you have to search another copy of the spell. Again, you get the extra normal summon with the beast, so now you can normal summon the Chaos Summoning Beast, and that's 2 fiends to start Link climbing with, and again, the spell can bring back a body as well. You also recycle the Dark Beckoning Beast all the time, so you don't have to worry about not having another one in the mid to late game. You'll see it in the combos, but then the last little fiend package we're playing, it's the Unchained cards, 1 copy of Shavara, and of course the Chamber to go alongside it. Chamber is still my preferred trap for this deck, and you'll see in the combos that I've been doing why I love playing this card, but after that, it's just non-engine that we filled into the deck. We're playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Nibiru, and lastly, 3 copies of Droll and Lock Bird. Yes, a lot of hand traps, 15. With all the Fiendsmith engines running around, the ceiling of all these decks have gone up. That's also why you see cards like Droll and Lock Bird included now, because while there are decks that can still play through Droll and Lock Bird, by itself, it will drastically reduce the power of your opponent's end board. Plus, there are times that Droll and Lock Bird at the right time could completely skip your opponent's turn. Again, you can mess with this non-engine as you see fit, but I've been really enjoying having all these hand traps right now. But now, before we hop into the extra deck, if you're looking to help the channel out, make sure you go check out the links down below. The channel is partnered with so many amazing companies, and I have a bunch of discount codes listed below. Not only will those codes help you save some money, but a portion of that purchase will come back to the channel, and it helps me make content for you. But now, hopping into the extra deck, it is a little tight on space, which is why I'm only running 2 copies of the Phantom of Yubel. This card is completely custom in the fact that you can summon it multiple times for a turn. Not only makes it to where you can play around so many hand traps, but you can use it as free link fodder as well. The card can't be used as a fusion summon, so you can't use it to make another copy, but it is nice that it can't get super polyed. But don't forget, the field spell can technically recycle it as well, but the last fusion we're playing is the 1 Lacrima. Takes 2 Light Fiends to make, but on summon it'll bring back a Light Fiend from your grave. Usually this is bringing back your Engraver, setting up more link climbing, or of course they're 2 level 6s, so you can go into an Exceed. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but another cool thing is while it's on the field, your opponent's monsters lose 600 attack. Plus now this deck has a win condition in time. Whenever it's sent to the grave, you can shuffle back one of your Light Fiends and burn your opponent for 1200, essentially a long yuan for the deck. At the end of the day, it's great because it recycles your extra deck cards, again giving you more follow-up if you wanted to use the engine on the next turn. But alongside it, to go into this fusion, of course we're playing the Link 2 Fiendsmith sequence. Takes only 2 monsters to make, but one has to be a Light Fiend. But this is essentially a miracle fusion on legs, but instead of banishing the monsters, it shuffles them back in the deck, again recycling those resources. And as I mentioned earlier, it has the graveyard effect that lets you equip itself to a non-link Fiendsmith monster. And while this is equipped to one of your Fiendsmith monsters, it also gives it targeting protection, so that's pretty dang cool. But the last one that we're playing is Fiendsmith Requiem, just a link one that takes a Light Fiend to make. While it's equipped to one of your monsters, it gives it a 600 attack boost. Again, pretty relevant, especially when you equip it to your Lacrima, because that also shrinks your opponent's monsters by 6, so it definitely helps you get over some big monsters. But the main effect you use it for is you contribute it from the field as a quick effect to be able to special summon your Engraver from the deck. It's very important to get access to it for all your Fiendsmith combos. And thanks to the card Moon of the Closed Heaven, now we can bridge any 2 effect monsters into our full Fiendsmith combo. Alongside that, we're also playing a Muckraker, a card that was already stable for the Yubel deck, but now this card doubles as a Promethean Princess, because now with your Fiendsmith engine, you can go into Beatrice and send Delotus from your deck to the grave. After, you'll convert the bodies into Muckraker, and then you can bring it back from the grave and go full Yubel combo from there. Again, make sure you stick around to the end because we'll go over that in a sec. But then, of course, we're playing the Unchained cards. We have the 1 Yama, and of course, 1 Soul of Rage. And this really feels like a Fiend Link deck. All the engines just bridge together so well. Of course, the Soul of Rage is usually used to go into SP Little Knight, and most of our end boards will end on an Appaloosa. And I am playing 1 more Link monster. It's definitely a flex slot, and it could be that 3rd copy of Phantom of Yubel. But for me, I am opting to run 1 copy of Almirage. Not because you absolutely need it, but for me, it definitely comes up when playing through hand traps. When you use something like Gates to search your Dark Beckoning Beast, if your opponent Valors it, now you know you can link it off into Almirage and then bring it back from the grave with opening. This at least gives you 2 bodies to potentially go into SP Little Knight, and if one of the cards you discarded was a Yubel, then you get a Phantom for free in the process. There's some other applications for the card as well, but test it out yourself and see if there's something else you'd rather have. But then the last cards, some Exceeds. As I mentioned, we have the Beatrice. We also have the High King Caesar, and one of the craziest cards in the game, Varudras. As I mentioned, Beatrice is just there to help bridge your Fiendsmith cards into the Yubel engine, and since there are times you get Fiend Lock, it's so insane that you have a boss monster that does not care about that. High King Caesar is so amazing. A Solemn Warning on legs, not once per turn, and as you'll see shortly in the combos, it comes up all the time. And of course, the Varudras, an Omni Negate, the Baron de Fleur for the deck. The boards you make in this deck are so crazy, and whenever you get the chance to back it up with Varudras, it makes it so hard for your opponent to be able to play the game. The only other card I'd consider is maybe a Typhon as well. Again, it is a Fiend, and it's so good at breaking boards. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop into some combos. All right, so for combo number 1, we're just going to do a 1-card Fiendsmith combo. Very similar to the Snake Eyes deck, this card can bridge into our Yubel engine. Of all the combos today, this is the only one that really plays into Nibiru with no protection. But just to showcase the basic Engraver combo, of course, when it's in our hand, we can activate its effect, discarding it to go ahead and search. This will obviously grab us the Tract, which will activate right away to go ahead and search again. Here we'll add the Lurry, and of course we'll discard it, and its effect will activate to bring itself back to the field. After that, of course, we have our link 1, so we'll go ahead and link it off. Requiem will hit the field, and then immediately we will use its effect to summon one from deck. We'll bring out another copy of Engraver, and now we can shuffle this Requiem back, bring Engraver out from the grave, and now we have 2 bodies. We're clear to link summon once again. We'll go into sequence, and we'll activate its effect. We'll shuffle back 2 Light Fiends. Just make sure you leave an Engraver in the graveyard. This will let us go into our fusion, and then on summon, Lacrima's effect will activate to bring the Engraver back from the graveyard. We have 2 level 6s. Again, very similar to the Snake Eyes combo. We'll now detach to send one to grave. Rather than sending Ash, now we can send Lotus, and of course, rather than going into Promethean Princess, now we can go into our Muckraker. The only downside to this combo is it does lock you into Fiends, so you're not going to end with anything like Appaloosa. Again, you got to do what you got to do when all you have is 1 card to combo. We'll activate the Muckraker's effect. We'll, of course, target the Lotus and discard a card. Now we're clear to do the Yubel combo. We'll use its effect to summon one from deck. This will summon the Spirit, and then Spirit will get another search. We'll grab the Pain and then activate it, destroying the Spirit of Yubel. Of course, we're going to pick up that Grave Squirmer, and then the Spirit's effect will activate. Yubel will hit the field, and now we can go ahead and summon that Squirmer from our hand. We've already been playing into Nibiru, so at this point, we're just going to full commit, and we're actually going to opt to destroy the Yubel when we summon this Grave Squirmer. This will trigger its effect to get another name in circulation, giving us more fodder for our fusion materials. Now we'll go ahead and link 2. Yama will hit the field and net us a search. Of course, we're going to pick up that Sharvara, and now we'll shuffle back these extra names that we cycled out of our deck. Phantom of Yubel will hit the field, and following that, we'll activate the Grave Squirmer, banishing it to bring back that Spirit of Yubel from the grave. Pretty straightforward from here. We'll activate that Sharvara, targeting the Yubel. It'll hit the field, and of course, Spirit's effect will activate as well. We'll pull that Yubel back out from the deck. Then from here, you have a couple of options, but what I've been doing lately is I just link these 2 off, go into our Soul of Rage, and activate our Sharvara's effect. Of course, this will go ahead and set the chamber from our deck, and from here, I just proceed to enter the end phase. Our Lotus in the graveyard will then activate, and it can bring itself back to the field. Then, of course, Yubel has to tribute something to keep itself alive, so I just tribute the Soul of Rage. You have the trap to bring it back, so you really don't mind. You could tribute the Muckraker. That's typically what I would do with other combos, and in total, you have essentially 2 monster negates by being able to change them into the effect to destroy a Yubel. You do have the destruction protection with Muckraker technically now as well, and of course, at any time, you can activate the chamber, bring back the Rage, and then use its effect. You'll steal one of your opponent's monsters, and then of course on summon you can banish another card they control, and if somehow they keep continuing to play, of course you can use SP Little Knight to then banish another card as well. Oh, and another thing, don't forget if your opponent's trying to run over your monster negate, or maybe they want to run over the SP once it hits the field, as long as Pain's on the field, they're not touching your monsters, they're going to be forced to attack into your Yubel. Pretty dang good for a 1-card combo. I guess another thing to note, when we were doing our combo, we could have shuffled back our sequence when our Lacrima hit the grave. This would have burnt our opponent for 1200 life points. Definitely something worth doing, so don't miss it like I did. But again, with this out of our graveyard, you still have another Light Fiend to then shuffle back to bring this back on the follow-up turn. But now that we've seen how the Fiendsmith cards can bridge into the Yubel engine, let's show how the Yubel cards get us to our Fiendsmiths. Alright, so for combo number 2, like I mentioned, it's a 1-card combo. There are so many 1-card combos in this deck, and that's what makes it so great. In this case, we're just going to showcase what Nightmare Throne can do by itself. And again, so many of these 1-card starters are also extenders, so it's so great that when you start drawing multiples, you can play through so many different hand traps. And that's the thing I love about this deck, is typically Nibiru really isn't a factor. Obviously, the combo I just showed you is an exception, but in this case, we're going to activate Nightmare Throne to go ahead and search. This, of course, will pick up our Lotus, we'll normal summon it, and we'll use its effect. This will summon our Spirit, which will then get us another search. We'll set the Pain and then activate it, destroying the Spirit of Yubel. This will add the Grave Squirmer, and then, of course, Spirit of Yubel will summon from deck. And I'm actually not opting to use the field spell quite yet. We will have another opportunity to use it. But then from here, we're going to go ahead and special summon our Grave Squirmer, and I actually do like using the effect here as well to destroy this Yubel. Again, I just love getting all this free fusion fodder. And right here, now your opponent can hit you with Nibiru. If they did, you really would not care, because you can always contact fuse into a fusion afterwards, and then of course use the Grave Squirmer to bring another body back from the grave. So now you'll have 2 fiends plus a token to start link climbing with. You can go full Fiendsmith combo essentially after that, and do some Unchained stuff as well. I'm telling you, this deck is crazy. But now, before we go into our Phantom of Yubel to turn off our opponent's Nibiru, we'll go ahead and make a Yama and use its effect to search. This picks up Sharvara, and again, even if they Nibiru you here, you can fuse into a Phantom and bring back another body with your Squirmer. So again, you really are in the same position, you do not care. Now, as mentioned, it's too late. If your opponent didn't Nibiru you now, they're never going to be able to after. We'll shuffle back the 2 Yubels and go into the Phantom of Yubel. And now we're clear. We'll go ahead and use the Grave Squirmer, bringing back our Spirit of Yubel. Next, we'll activate the Sharvara, destroying the Spirit of Yubel. And like I mentioned, not only are we going to trigger the Spirit, but now we can trigger the field spell. We'll go ahead and add the Terror and then summon the Terror. And of course, the Yubel will be brought out off of the Spirit. And really quickly, I just wanted to touch on something that a lot of people asked me in the last Yubel video. While Sharvara is on the field, you are Fiend locked, but the second you get it off the field, you no longer have that restriction. Muckraker is different. Once you've activated this effect to summon one from grave, then for the rest of the turn, you are locked into Fiends, whether this is on the field or not. So don't worry, once you start seeing me go into Appaloosa, even though I've used Sharvara's effect, I will no longer be locked once it's off the field. So now from here, we're going to go ahead and link the Sharvara off alongside the Incarnate. This will go into our Soul of Rage, and of course Sharvara's effect will activate. Once again, we'll pick up that Chamber, and then from here, we'll go ahead and perform another Link Summon. This goes into our Moon of the Closed Heaven, and now we can do our Fiendsmith combo. Of course, it's a light fiend, so we can link it off, go into our Requiem, and then right away, we'll go ahead and tribute it off, and we'll special one from deck. Engraver now will hit the field, and we can go ahead and pull these Yubels out of our grave and go ahead and fusion summon once again. The Phantom here is just Link fodder, and don't forget, you can recycle these Phantoms not by fusion summoning with them, but your Nightmare Throne, if a Yubel gets destroyed, can recycle a fusion from your graveyard back to the extra deck, so that is something to keep in mind. But anyway, from here, now we can continue to Link Summon. We'll go ahead and make that sequence, and we'll activate its effective fusion summon. We'll put back our 2 light fiends. Once again, we'll go into our Lacrima, and then we'll use its effect to bring back this Engraver. Then we'll go ahead and send all these to the grave for a Link Summon. We'll make an Appaloosa, and in this case, it is for 3. And then now we can go ahead and put this sequence back into our extra deck to bring back our Engraver. And now, of course, 2 level 6s. We can Exceed Summon, and here we can go into our High King Caesar. You have an Appo for 3 monster negates, plus Yubel as essentially a 4th negate. You have a double Solemn Warning in the form of our DDD, plus at any time, don't forget, you have the Chamber. Again, bringing out the Soul of Rage, and then stealing one of your opponent's monsters. You'll be able to go into SP, banish another card, and if somehow they keep continuing to play, of course, you can banish another card as well. And it really doesn't matter what you're up against. Most decks in the meta are going to struggle to break a board like this, at least without some non-engine. Now for combo number 3, not only are we going to play around Nibiru, but we're going to end with an Omni Negate as well, protecting you from those board breakers like we just mentioned. In this case, all you'll need is a copy of Nightmare Throne, and then any of these other cards. Nightmare Throne can essentially search either of the 2 missing monsters that you didn't open. We'll just say we have Opening of the Spirit Gates. Again, it doesn't matter whether it was the gates or the one of monster, but in this case, we'll go ahead and start by activating its effect to go ahead and search. Of course, we'll pick up the Dark Beckoning Beast. On the summon of Dark Beckoning Beast, we will use its effect to search. If you want the guaranteed follow-up, you can grab another copy of the gates. In this case, I'm just going to grab the Summoning Beast. And again, this just goes to show, even if you didn't have the field spell in your hand, just by playing this card, now we can extra normal summon it. And with the gates, that's a total of 3 bodies that we're working with. In this combo, we're not going to extra normal summon the beast. Instead, we're going to activate the throne and then give ourselves a search. We'll go ahead and grab that Delotus. Like I said, whether you open the Delotus or one of these cards, the throne will search the missing piece. Now we'll summon the Delotus and of course activate its effect to summon from deck. Spirit of Yubel hits the field and of course that effect will activate as well. We'll grab Pain and of course activate it, destroying Yubel, adding ourselves the Grave Squirmer, and then of course Spirit of Yubel will activate. We'll bring out the original Yubel, and again, we're going to wait to use the Nightmare Throne until we've kind of checkmated our opponent and forcing them to have to Nibiru us. We'll go ahead and Link Summon once again, and now we'll go into our Yama. Now we can get hit with Nibiru. I think it's hilarious because your opponent has to Nibiru you now just for a Yama, and then after you get hit with the Nib, you'll have a token, plus you can still contact fuse into one of your fusions. You'll have gates to bring back another body, plus you have 2 extenders in hand. You literally are just going to go full combo. Nibiru does nothing against this combo, but again, hand traps aside, this is where we'll shuffle back that Yubel and our Dark Beckoning Beast. We'll go into our Phantom, and now we know we're protected from Nibiru, and then from here, we can now proceed to go into full combo. We control Fiend, so we can special summon this Grave Squirmer. With it, now we can link these 2 bodies off, and this will look familiar. Of course, we're going to go into the Moon and then link it off right away. We'll go into our Requiem and activate its effect. Engraver will hit the field. From here, we'll activate this Grave Squirmer, bringing back the spirit from the graveyard, and then from here, instead of linking with our Engraver, we're going to start doing our Unchained combos. Sharvara hits the field by destroying the Spirit of Yubel. Here is where we will opt to activate that field spell effect now. We'll add Terror and summon Terror, and then of course the Yubel gets brought out from the deck. We'll link these 2 bodies off using our Starlight Fiend to go into our sequence. We'll use the sequence effect. We'll go ahead and put our Moon and of course our Requiem back. Just like last time, this will summon our Lacrima, and then Lacrima's effect will then bring back our Engraver. From here, we'll take these two bodies, we'll link them off. We'll go into our Solo Rage and activate Sharvar's effect. Once again, getting the trap, chamber gets set, and then from here we will link these two bodies off. Go into our Appaloosa, only this time it is for 2. Reason we did that is we want to keep this Yubel on the field, but before we use that, we're actually going to shuffle this sequence back now. Engraver will come back, and again, we have 2 level 6s. Here we'll go into our Caesar, and this is basically the board we built in the last combo, and you could just end your turn and once again bring out the Delotus, giving yourself 2 monster negates plus 2 Apple negates. But in this combo, we never use the effect of opening of the Spirit Gates. Again, I love saving it just in case we do get met with multiple hand traps, but now we're in the clear. We can go ahead, activate this effect, bring back out the Spirit of Yubel, and I think you know where I'm going from here. That's 2 level 10s. Varudris will hit the field, insulating this amazing board with an Omni Negate. Just to sum things up, you have 2 monster negates with Appaloosa. You can essentially negate a monster effect with Phantom of Yubel. You have a double Solemn Warning with our High King Caesar, and an Omni Negate with the Varudris, really insulating this board against board breakers. And of course, as always, we have the chamber. We can activate it, steal our opponent's monster with the Soul of Rage, and again, SP banishes on summon and can banish a second card in the process. I'm telling you, you have to try this deck. It is so much fun to play. There really are so many different ways to bridge into these combos. This deck really does feel like a Fiend Link pile. So that's gonna wrap things up for today's video. Thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate all the support. This Yubel Fiend Link deck is so crazy, and it's one of the funnest decks to play this format. Fiendsmith is really taking the meta to the next level, and so many decks can abuse it. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we have even more Fiendsmith content coming out soon. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and here's hoping to see you on the next one. Peace.